What's up, guys? It's Collin Coates from Built2Wander. I'm back at the shop in Colorado Springs at 3D Off-Road, and next to me is a 2006 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon, also known as the LJ. This is my dad's Jeep. We brought it out here from Ohio. He knows I have it. He has no idea what we're doing to it. We're surprising him with the build here in just a few weeks in Moab for Easter Jeep Safari, and we're so stoked about this project. So follow along as we take you through the build process, key you in on everything you can expect to see when we complete this thing here in just a few weeks. So as you may or may not have seen, we did a video a few months back, last fall in October, when we were out at Sand Hollow. We were doing some wheeling. My dad came out. I put him in the front seat of the Triton JL. He had so much fun learning to do some rock crawling for the first time. At the end of the few days we were on the trail, he said, dude, we have to do my Jeep. He got the itch. He was like, we got to build this thing. And honestly, that's all I needed to hear, because we've been talking about doing it for a couple years. So I told him if he gives me the Jeep, I'll get it out to Colorado. We'll build it, and then he'd come out and see it. So he really doesn't have any idea what we're doing, which is probably the best part. It's been a lot of fun kind of designing this Jeep around the way I think he will use it. And I think he's gonna be really stoked with the end outcome. So without further ado, let me walk you through what we're up to. You know, what makes the LJ so unique against the Wrangler TJ, which was built from years 97 to 2006, was that this was only built for 3 years, 04 to 06. And they only made a Rubicon from 05 to 06. So only 2-year run on the Ruby. And they estimate only 44,000 were ever built. What's different than the TJ is that it's got 10 inches longer wheelbase, and it's 15 inches longer overall than the TJ. So 10 inches length and wheelbase, 5 inches behind the rear fender, gives you a ton more cargo room, makes it a lot more functional of a vehicle, I would say. And because of that, they're highly sought after. It's really hard to get your hands on one, especially a clean one. This thing's not too bad. It's a little, you know, it has its spots. It's an older vehicle, of course, but overall, it was in great shape. Pretty much bone stock when we brought it out from Ohio. Of course, we're tearing into it. We're changing that a little bit, but we are going to kind of pay homage to that original LJ body. We're not stretching it. We're keeping it stock length. We're just going to make it Built2Wander. All right, so to get started, we're going to talk about our tire selection. Really, that's what we built this entire rig around. We decided to go with a 37-inch tire for this build. We're running the Nitto Tire Trail Grappler. It's my favorite for many reasons, but it really boils down to its versatility. It's a great street and trail compromise. Rides down the road smooth and comfortable, but yet it's got that aggressive tread, hooks up well on the rocks, and it does fairly well in a lot of different conditions. We stuck with a 37 because, one, we didn't have to stretch the rear to cycle that tire correctly. 2, we didn't have to do high lines, which means we didn't have to cut the hood, kept a factory hood. And 3, we don't have to run big Dana 60 axles, 1 ton, you know, something real beefy to support a 40-inch tire or something bigger. We've got the 17-inch tank beadlocks. These just came in. They're brand new wheel for KMC. They look sick. It'll be cool to have something kind of new and unique. But the satin black feels a little overplayed, so we're bringing them to Mod Finishes. They're going to sandblast them and then add their special touch to it. Now we can talk about the drivetrain requirements. I think the 4-liter inline-6 motor that comes stock in the Wrangler Unlimited LJ should be plenty for the 37s, but we definitely wanted to upgrade the axles. We ran with a Curry high pinion 44 front axle and their low pinion 9-inch rear axle. That combination should be plenty strong for these tires. And what we also did was we made them 5 inches wider than stock. So they're basically the same width as the JK, which will make this thing way more stable, both on-road and off-road, obviously. We're building out both of those axles with carbon off-road, ring and pinion, their axle shafts, and then we're throwing in some ARB air lockers, both front and rear. That way this thing will be locked up front and rear, can do some of the harder trails. Like I said, we really want it to be point and shoot. I think those internal components combined with Curry's axle housings will be just plenty strong. Should be a killer setup for this thing. There's a couple different areas that we need to address to fit a 37-inch tire under this thing. I wanted to start with suspension. You can see that we've cut all the factory brackets off the frame. We've got some control arm brackets welded in from Savvy. So we're doing Savvy Off-Road's mid-arm kit. I chose the mid-arm because I tend to think the long arms get dragged up too much on rocks. They end up becoming a skid plate, whereas the mid arm, it doesn't get hung up as much. So I think that'll be kind of a good setup for this. But we're also using Rock Jock control arms with Johnny joints. We're gonna run Rock Jocks, anti-rocks front and rear, and then also Bilstein coilovers and their air bumps. So we've got 12-inch short body coilovers from Bilstein. We're gonna pair that with a 2-inch air bump, and they'll go on all 4 corners. Will give us the adjustability. We can dial in the ride height that way. I think the combination with the Johnny joints, the Savvy mid-arm kit, they did a great job designing that kit. They actually ran it on an LJ at King of the Hammers and won the first 2 years of the Everyman Challenge with that Jeep. So it's definitely been proven out there in some of the harshest, toughest off-roading out there. So we know it's proven. We know it'll work really well under this Jeep, and honestly, we're pretty stoked to get it set up. Apart from the suspension, now we can really dive into the armor. Of course, it is important to have that lift to get that height to clear these 37-inch tires. But in addition, we also need flat fenders. So Genrite makes a highline fender kit and also a standard height flat fender kit. We did the standard height because we didn't want to have to trim up the hood. We can run the factory hood, but we went with aluminum fenders. So in the front, you can see we did their aluminum fenders, aluminum inner fenders to kind of hide the engine bay. These things are incredibly lightweight. They're strong. They're designed really well. And honestly, I think they just add a really nice aesthetic to the build. And we also did the rear fender flare with their aluminum corner guards. Those two combined will add a lot of strength to the tub back here. So that way, if we hit this, we pivot off of this fender flare in the rocks or something, the aluminum corner guard is gonna help take some of that abuse and not hurt the tub in doing so. So like I said, we chose aluminum because we knew, adding heavier tires to this thing, all of the extra components, a little bit heavier duty axles, that's a lot of weight for this 4-liter inline 6 to handle. So anywhere we could save weight, we wanted to, and Genrite's products allowed us to do that. So we're pumped about that. Now, apart from the fenders, we did do steel rockers. So these are their mini boat side rockers, again, from Genrite, but we did steel because our experience is that we're gonna be on these things a lot when we're off-roading. I know aluminum's a softer material. It'll get marred up easier in the rocks. The steel will take as much abuse as we can throw at it. So they still look super clean. They've got that really nice boat side lip to them, so they'll slide off of rockers here, which will be nice. Obviously, they fit up nice and flush to the corner guards, but that was one of the areas that we really just didn't want to compromise on. Speaking of Genrite, you can see this spider web behind me. That's actually called a roll cage. We ditched the factory cage. My dad is kind of new to off-roading, and obviously this is going to be a pretty capable rig, but God forbid something happens out there, we wanted him to be protected. So, ultimately the Genrite cage is really a safety thing. This is their standard cage kit. It's not the fastback. It basically goes all the way back. We didn't do the harness bars. We wanted to be able to get into the back seat pretty easily, so we left those out. But overall, really impressed with this cage. Matt put it together. He did a fantastic job. But of course, we added power tanks to this build. We have them on all of our builds. It's the best way to air up when you're off-roading. But we were having trouble finding the right place to mount them on the Genrite cage. So Matt, what'd you do to make it work?
We added some tubes to the cage to make this an easy mount for us, and that way they're up and out of the way and not on the floor.
Yeah, so as you can see, they're mounted, equally on each side. They look super clean, just a dedicated spot. It almost looks like it's, kind of the way the Genrite cage came. So pretty pumped about how Matt was able to integrate that in here. And the nice thing is they're not on the floorboard. They're out of the cargo area, so you have plenty of space for all your other accessories while you're out there. And then on the bumpers, we did Savvy aluminum bumpers. Keeps a really nice clean profile, matches up to the Genrite aluminum corners really well. It's got the integrated D-ring tabs. That should be nice to have for recovery purposes. And then in the front, again, we did Savvy's front bumper. We added the bull bar. We built some light tabs for the Baja Designs S8 light bar. We also have the winch plate on there with the Fairlead mount. So we're running a Warren Xeon 10S Platinum winch for recovery. We picked up Genrite's steering box skid plate. So we're actually going to be running some pretty heavy duty steering. We're going to do a PSC hydraulic assist kit with their big bore box. That'll mount right up here. This Genrite skid plate will keep it out of harm's way, protect it. We'll be mounting up that PSC hydraulic ram assist. to a 2.5 ton tie rod from RPM Steering. We'll also be running RPM's drag link as well, so those will both be aluminum links with rare parts ends forgings with their cartridges, which will be basically mated to these JK knuckles up front. Right now you can see the Jeep's got the cage bolted in, no top. Right here you can see the soft top and the hard top. We like having the ability to choose between both setups, but when we deliver this thing to Easter Jeep Safari and surprise my dad with the build, we're gonna run the best top super top on here with the half doors. That way he can flip that top back while we're in Moab, have that open air experience. Matt did wonders with fitting the soft top to the Genrite cage. It's tight, it looks factory. You can't tell that there's a Genrite cage behind it. So in addition to the soft top, we do have quite a bit of accessories that we're putting into this thing. You know, a couple of these things include our S-Pod accessory interface. We're gonna be running their HD panel and the Bantam, so it'll be sick. We're gonna wire up our ARB twin air compressor, front and rear air lockers, our accessory lighting from Baja Designs. We also have some rugged radios coming for comms. That way, you know, when my dad's wheeling with us, he can talk to us vehicle to vehicle. He'll have some headsets and intercoms so he can talk with the passenger. And you know, if you're driving down the road, the top's off, you can hear each other with the headphones on. We also have some Factor 55 recovery gear that we're putting in this thing. We picked up one of their recovery kits, and we're running their aluminum Haas Fairlead, the Ultra Hook, basically closed system winching, making sure that if my dad has to do a recovery, he has all the right gear. It's all made in the USA. You can rely on that stuff to perform a recovery. You can do it in a safe manner. So for me, that's really important. It's something that we have in every single one of our rigs. So I couldn't do this build and not include that in it. You guys have seen a lot of the major components that are going into this thing. Of course, we're waiting on some of them, but one of the things that I think gets often overlooked is navigation. We actually have a skosh mount. We mounted it to the windshield. It's a suction cup mount. That thing is super strong even while you're off-road. I use it in Triton JL all the time. We put that in the LJ here. We grabbed an iPad, loaded up Onyx Off-Road on it, and when my dad takes receipt of this vehicle in Moab, we're gonna have every trail that we're gonna hit loaded up on that thing, dialed in, ready to go. You can see Hell's Revenge. That's what we plan on hitting when we get there. We're actually gonna take this LJ, stage it on Hell's Revenge, do the surprise reveal there, put him in the front seat, and go run the trail. So a lot of people think of Hell's Revenge when they think of Moab. I think it's an iconic trail. Love that we're gonna have Onyx Off-Road loaded up so he can see that, interact with it, and just kind of use all that functionality while we're wheeling for the week. Guys, thanks for following along as we walk you through the ins and outs on this build of this 2006 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon, also known as the LJ. We're so excited to finish this up, deliver it to my dad in Moab for Easter Jeep Safari. We definitely have our work cut out for us. I couldn't do this without Matt Thompson's help at 3D Off-Road. I really appreciate that. Guys, drop us a note below. Let us know what you think of the build so far. And as always, hit the like button if you did and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, wander on.